I didn't catch her with a coat half on or a stranger at our door. It started with a sound I knew too well, the soft, cheerful ding of her tablet on the kitchen counter. I was rinsing rice, thinking about nothing at all, when the notification slid across the lock screen like a confession that didn't plan to be one. Leon. Same office. Don't book under our names. I'll bring the key. I didn't touch the tablet. I didn't need to. The words burned themselves into my head the way a license plate does after a hit and run. She walked in a moment later, hair pinned, perfume calm, smile ready for a marriage that had learned how to pose. I'll be working late, she said too lightly. Quarterly reviews. I nodded at the pot. I'll keep dinner for you. Don't, she said, grabbing the tablet without really looking at me. It's unpredictable. My hands finished cooking on autopilot. Inside, something slower took shape. Not a scream, not even a thought. A decision. I set out 2 plates, then 1. I ate, tasted nothing, washed the dishes, dried the counter until the cloth squeaked. When she left, I didn't follow. I wrote. A notebook, a pen that didn't judge me for headings, what I know, what I can prove, what I feel later, what I will do. Under no I wrote the message, the name, the pattern, her. Late nights, the 2 new blouses that still smelled like a hotel hallway. Under prove I listed everything boring that becomes sharp in the right hands. Shared card statements, rideshare history, calendar invites mislabeled as WFH. Under feel I left the page blank. Feelings are loud, and I needed quiet. Under do I wrote 1 sentence with a period heavy enough to hold me upright. No scenes. No shouting. Only facts. People think revenge is a bonfire. It isn't. Revenge is a spreadsheet that breathes. I opened our banking app. A charge at an executive suites building 2 blocks from her office. I scrolled back a month too. Same place. Same price. Same hours. A string of rideshare pickups from a corner I knew was the back entrance. My chest didn't collapse. It locked. I slept badly and, somehow, not at all. In the morning she floated through the apartment as if nothing had changed. Maybe for her nothing had. Don't forget your lunch, she said, kissing my cheek with the kind of kiss that can pass a lie like a baton. I clipped my yes into the air and watched the door close behind her as if the wood had a say in any of this. I packed what I needed. The notebook, the card statements, the stubborn part of me that refuses to be stupid twice. I went to the one place where I still know how to be exact. At my desk, the city pressed its forehead to the glass and pretended not to listen. I answered 2 emails the way people wave to neighbors at a crime scene. Too cheerful, too quick. Then I opened a blank document titled Timeline and started laying rails. Receipts. Times. Names. Leon. I didn't know him. Not really, but 5 minutes on the company registry told me enough. Director at her firm, traveling frequently, the kind of biography that fits into 3 smug bullet points. A scan through public filings pulled a small mercy into view. A wedding announcement last year, wife named Maya. I wrote her name down and let the idea sit beside it like a chair I might use later. I called our card provider and asked for itemized statements for the last 6 months. The rep, cheerful and unbothered by my slow voice, promised PDFs within the hour. While I waited, I did the one thing I'm always good at when I'm not good at anything: rules. I built myself 3. No improvising. Hurt makes you theatrical. Proof makes you quiet. No confrontations at home. Our apartment is not a courtroom. No outcome I can't explain to myself a year from now. The statements arrived. I stacked them with the calm hands you use for glass. There it was, 2 tops charged to an executive suites cafe that doesn't have a cafe, room fees under a vaguely named invoice portal, a wine bar she pretends to hate. I circled dates, drew lines, watched a shape appear. A knock on the frame. Nora from compliance leaned in, eyebrow up. You look like someone who just discovered an audit in his soup. Just reconciling, I said. She grinned. Say the word if you need a second pair of eyes. I'm excellent at killing romance between numbers. When she left, I stared at her phrase. Killing romance between numbers. Useful work. I kept going. By lunch I had a timeline. By 2 I had an outline. By 3 I had a plan dangerous enough to feel like safety. I wasn't going to barge into an executive suite and play at cinema. I was going to write an email to a woman who didn't know me yet and offer her the thing nobody ever offers in time. The truth before it becomes a headline. I drafted, Maya, you don't know me. I hope you never have to. I'm attaching 4 receipts and 3 calendar screenshots that suggest our partners are meeting regularly at the same location. I'm not looking for a fight. I'm looking for clarity. If I'm wrong, you can tell me so, and I'll owe you an apology I'll never stop paying. If I'm right, we can meet in a public place to decide what to do with the truth we didn't ask for. I didn't send it yet. You only fire once if you're careful. I booked 2 seats at a place we both could live with, neutral, busy, forgiving to whispered anger. Then I went back to the document that kept me from drowning and put a neat box around the words co-working cafe, 5 p.m. At 4:40, I printed my timeline and slid it into a plain folder. Revenge shouldn't need a logo. The cafe was full of laptop faces and rented ambition. The espresso machine hissed like a tired animal. The Wi-Fi chose favorites. I picked a table near the wall, ordered water because caffeine would make me sloppy, and watched the door the way you watch a cliff edge in bad weather. She arrived at 5:07, sooner than a stranger owes anyone. Late 30s, tidy ponytail, eyes that had done their share of math. We recognized each other the way people do who've been living in parallel sentences. Maya? I asked. She nodded, didn't sit yet. You're... She said my name like it had been on her tongue all afternoon. I gestured to the chair. Thank you for coming. She placed a tote bag beside her and folded her hands on the table the way people do when they're bracing. Show me. I slid the folder across the wood. She didn't flinch. She read. Her mouth got smaller with each page. When she reached the line where the rideshare dropped them at the back entrance everyone pretends isn't a back entrance, she put one finger on the date like she was stopping blood. This was his birthday, she said. Then softer. And our dinner was at 7 that night. I said nothing. Sometimes the kindest thing in the room is silence that doesn't offer a tissue. When she finished, she looked at me properly. No performance. Just a person whose floor had given way twice, once at home, once here. You're not here to shout, she said. I promised myself I wouldn't. Good. I'm too tired to be shouted at. She took a breath that tried and failed to be steady. What are you proposing? Facts first. Then, if you want, coordination. Not a public spectacle. A careful final correction. I told her my 3 rules. She nodded along like she'd written them last year. Do you have more? She asked. I have enough. She reached into her tote and pulled out an envelope I recognized from 1,000 films I never wanted to live inside. So do I, she said, and slid it toward me. I didn't touch it. Hotel matches, she said. Names he swore belonged to a supplier we can't lose. I know their fonts now. We sat with our evidence on the table between us like a centerpiece nobody wanted. Around us, the cafe carried on with its comforting lies. Productivity, purpose, people who aren't here because their homes feel wrong. What do you want? I asked. Her answer was the first sentence all day that didn't limp. I want it over, she said. Not loud. Not endless. Just concluded. I nodded. Me too. We sketched an outline with our words. The kind of outline you can erase without leaving tracks. Before everything else, we would protect ourselves. No shouting matches to feed on later. No text messages to screenshot us into fools. We would record only what needed recording and share only what needed sharing. If a confrontation happened at all, it would happen where the truth could sit down and behave. She stared at the table. I can get in there, she said. Leon will walk into any room where he thinks the world still fits him. And I can get her there, I said. She loves rooms that admire her. Not our homes, she said. Never, I said. We settled on a place that had polite napkins and bad lighting for lies. A place where servers know how to disappear and come back with exactly the right interruption when someone forgets they're human. I called and made a reservation under a name we didn't share with anyone. She texted him while I watched her face not betray the specifics and read the reply in her posture. He's in, she said. I texted my wife 2 sentences about a friend's celebratory dinner and watched the bubbles bloom into a heart she didn't deserve. She's in, I said. We sat a few minutes longer not speaking, and it was the easiest silence I'd had in a month. When Maya stood, she picked up the envelope, hesitated, then pushed it toward me again. Keep it, she said. If I take it home, I'll turn it into a ritual. You seem like someone who files things and then lives anyway. I try, I said. She gave me a look I want to remember for a long time. Respect for a stranger you didn't choose. We'll meet there, she said, naming the restaurant. We'll be on time. I walked out into a street that had the nerve to be ordinary and realized my hands had stopped shaking. Not because I was better, because the plan was. At home, the apartment smelled like sliced citrus and a candle that promises to fix your life if you let it burn long enough. She was typing at the table, glasses low on her nose, the picture of an evening after an honest day. How was your day? She asked without looking up. Fine, I said. Got invited to dinner. Promotion thing. She smiled in the direction of her screen. Whoever it is, tell them congrats from me. I will. We moved around each other the way people do when they still remember the dance steps but forgot the song. I cooked. She pretended to answer emails. At one point, she reached to touch my wrist, and I let her, the way you let a ghost touch your shoulder to confirm it doesn't belong to the living anymore. After dinner, she poured wine and began a story about a coworker who lacks initiative, a phrase that usually bought her 10 minutes of my best nodding. Tonight, I watched her mouth form the shapes of a life that didn't include me in any of the verbs. It's funny, I had expected rage to be the loudest part of this. Instead, it was clarity. I stacked the plates, washed them until they squeaked, wiped the counter. She disappeared into a shower she didn't need. I sat at the table with my notebook and drew 4 boxes for the 4 rooms that would hold what came next. Apartment, no more arguments here. Our walls didn't sign up to be witnesses. Office, last set of downloads, timelines locked, copies made. Co-working cafe, coordination, not confession. Finished. Restaurant, confrontation, clean and final. I closed the notebook, slid it under the fruit bowl, and went to bed beside a woman I had once promised to carry through sickness and health. She kept her back to me. I watched the ceiling and repeated the rules until they felt like prayer. She fell asleep fast, or she performed sleep well enough to count. Either way, I didn't move. I didn't check my phone. I didn't ransack her bag. I had exactly what I needed, no more. Tomorrow I'd go to work, answer emails, breathe the way people breathe who want to be taken seriously. Then I'd walk into a restaurant at the agreed-upon time with a folder that didn't shout. and we would speak the truth in a room designed to hear it. We didn't choose a place that made a scene easy. Dark wood, steady candles, servers who know how to step out of a sentence without taking the air with them. Maya arrived first, a small nod between strangers who had taught each other how to breathe for a week. She took the seat facing the entrance, so she could watch him walk in. I sat opposite, so I could watch her walk in. They came 2 minutes apart, like a bad joke timed by a metronome. Leon spotted Maya, then clocked me, then glanced at my wife the way men do when they've rehearsed a story but not a cast list. My wife took the chair beside me because that's where muscle memory put her. Leon took the chair beside Maya because pride put him there. The table was a square now, truth on one axis, excuses on the other. "Nice choice," Leon said, adjusting his cuff. He had the kind of smile that believes in its own diplomatic immunity. My wife squeezed my hand under the table, the squeeze that means we'll debrief later, defuse now. I let my hand go slack and reached for water instead. Menus arrived, were ignored. The waiter did the merciful thing and asked if we wanted a minute. We said yes because what we actually needed was a decade. I set the plain folder on the table. No flourish. No slap. Paper has its own gravity. All you have to do is let go. "We'll keep this simple," I said, and heard how quiet my voice had become in the last week. "There will be no shouting in this room. There will be no lies, because they won't survive the first page. We're here to give the truth a chair, and then decide what we owe it." My wife's eyes flashed, hurt at the framing, anger at the venue, calculation moving behind both. "What is this?" she asked, though the question had an answer stamped across 3 invoices. Maya didn't speak. She placed her toad on her lap, like a shield, and watched Leon's face the way a surgeon watches a monitor. I opened the folder. First, the timeline. Dates, locations, times that rhyme when you read them aloud. Second, statements. Third, the rideshare drops at the service entrance everyone pretends is just for deliveries. I slid the pages across, 1, 2, 3, until the table had more witnesses than we did. My wife's mouth formed half a dozen words that didn't make it out. Leon smirked as if this were a negotiation and not a coroner's report. "You've misunderstood a lot of very normal." Maya laid her hand on the envelope in her tote. "Don't," she said, not loud. The waiter appeared, sensed the weather, retreated with professional grace. I didn't ask a question. Questions invite stories. I offered facts in order. "On these dates, you met at this building. On these nights, you charged rooms to a portal that masks the merchant. On these afternoons, you told each of us you were somewhere else. If I'm wrong, show me where." Silence has flavors. This one tasted like metal. Leon shifted first, reaching for indignation and coming up with theater. "You're out of your depth," he told me, and then to Maya, softer, "You're humiliating us." She looked at him as if he were a headline she used to click and had finally learned not to. "No," she said. "You did that." My wife turned to me, voice pitched into the old key, the one meant for undoing. "We can talk at home." "We don't do this at home," I said. "Our walls didn't sign a consent form." Leon leaned back, choosing strategy. "What's the ask? Money? An apology? A promise?" He said promise, like it was currency he still carried. I took a slow breath. I could feel the rules I wrote in my notebook standing behind me like quiet bodyguards. "There are 3 parts," I said. "First, acknowledgement. No euphemisms. No work dinners that turn into hotel rooms because the lighting is flattering. Say what you did so you can stop doing it. Second, logistics. You," I looked at Leon, "will recuse yourself from any business that places you in contact with her or me. You will inform your HR of an undisclosed relationship that created conflicts and misused expense mechanisms. You, I looked at my wife, will choose between our marriage and the ongoing lie. If you choose the lie, I'll accept that as your answer and act accordingly. If you choose our marriage, we still step away from this table on separate paths for a while. No bargaining with the past in the present tense. Maya set her envelope on the wood and slid it toward me without looking down. Third? She asked. Documentation, I said. Everything that needs to be formal is already backed up. I don't want a public spectacle. I want the truth in the rooms that make decisions. Leon laughed, a brittle sound. You think you're righteous because you own a printer? No, I said. I think I'm sane because I wrote things down. The waiter reappeared with water and the suggestion of bread. We accepted the water. Bread felt like a lie we hadn't earned. My wife inhaled and exhaled like she was about to jump into a lake. I was unfaithful, she said. The word hung there, terrible and correct. With him. She didn't try to pluralize guilt into we. She didn't say mistake or phase. For a second, I hated her less for not insulting the room with euphemisms. For a second. Leon stared at her, stunned that she had given up the last chip he knows how to play. You don't have to, he started. I do, she said. She turned back to me. I don't have a defense. I waited. People confuse pauses with kindness. Sometimes they're just accurate. Then here's what happens next, I said. We separate. No theatrics. I'll stay with a friend this month. We'll decide how to tell families. We'll decide nothing else tonight. I looked at Leon. You'll tell your HR first thing in the morning. If you don't, a packet arrives on a desk with your name on it by 9. No social media. No press. No revenge porn of the soul. Just consequences. Leon's bravado thinned. You don't have that kind of. Maya reached into her tote again and produced a second envelope. We do, she said. And if you push, I will file the internal report myself, with dates and a statement. Your supplier you can't lose will have to find a new rep. He froze, calculating the exit with the least mirrors. You're overreacting, he said, the last prayer of men who misread a room. No, she said. I'm correcting. The bill hadn't been asked for, but the waiter brought it anyway, a quiet mercy disguised as efficiency. I put my card down because there is a power in paying for the dinner that ends a geometry you never opted into. No one argued. The machine beeped its small absolution. We stood. No slammed chairs, no toppled water. That was the thing about this restaurant. You could end a life quietly, and they would still bring mints. At the door, my wife reached for my sleeve. Can we talk? She asked. The old me would have said yes in the name of grace. The new me remembered that grace without boundaries is just fertilizer for weeds. We'll talk with a counselor between us, I said, and with silence between sessions. She nodded, tears she'd been saving finally showing up to do their unhelpful job. I stepped aside so Maya could pass. She paused just long enough to touch my shoulder. Not comfort. Not pity. Recognition. Then she was gone, envelope reclaimed, spine straighter than it had been when she walked in. We left in 4 different directions. That felt important. Morning does this thing where it pretends to forgive you if you show up on time. I showed up early. The building hummed its usual song, elevators gossiping, coffee machines confessing, printers rehearsing. I sat at my desk and opened a new document, summary for HR, personal, and another, summary for HR, external. Then I wrote what I would have wanted someone to write if they were writing about me. I didn't dramatize. I didn't sanitize. I captured the timeline of meetings at the executive suites. Expense anomalies that miscategorized personal as business. The potential conflicts created by Leon's role in vendor decisions. The steps I had already taken: no confrontation at work premises, no social posts, coordination to prevent disruptions. I attached the receipts and the timeline. I CC'd no one I didn't have to. I hit send once, then again. Nora from compliance appeared in my doorway as if the email had printed her. "That was clean," she said after reading. "You want me in the room?" "Yes," I said. "Not as an executioner. As a translator." We sat with HR at 10. They asked the right questions. Were any company's systems used? Did any direct reports experience pressure? Does this cross into harassment or retaliation? I answered carefully, not because I was protecting Leon, those days were over, but because truth loses weight when you put glitter on it. "Leave us the documents," the director said. "We'll follow our process." "I expect you to," I said, and surprised myself with how much I meant it. By noon, a quiet email arrived. "Leon, administrative leave, effective immediately, pending review." No fanfare, no parade. That's how systems work when you hand them something heavy enough to balance their scales. I didn't cheer. I didn't text Maya a confetti emoji. I put my phone face down and watched the city through the glass. Delivery trucks convincing buildings to eat, pedestrians rehearsing their own small battles, a pigeon that believed the ledge belonged to it. Life, uninterested in my milestones, kept going. Bless it. At 2, my wife pinged me. "Can we talk tonight?" I typed, "I'll be home to get necessities. Then I'll give us space." She sent a heart. Hearts are easy to send. Hard to back up. I walked to Nora's desk before leaving. "Thank you," I said. She held my eyes a beat. "You didn't try to make the story bigger than it is," she said. "That's rare. It helps." "I'm not interested in spectacle," I said. "Good," she said. "Spectacle is expensive." On my way out, I passed Leon's office. The door was closed, the nameplate still in place. An empty chair behind glass looks like a sermon if you've been honest long enough. Closure shouldn't require the same table that broke you, but sometimes geometry is poetic. Maya and I met again, earlier than dinner, later than lunch. The room felt smaller without lies trying to colonize it. We didn't bring envelopes. We brought a list. "HR moved," she said. "Faster than I expected. He's on leave." "Same," I said. I chose administrative clarity over vengeance, and the system understood me. She smiled, a tired thing that still did its job. "I told my mother," she said. "She asked if it was her fault." I said no, and hated how much of that no was habit. "I'm packing tonight," I said. "No shouting. No speeches. Just a bag." We ate actual food this time, and for 40 minutes we performed the ancient human ritual of chewing in a room that had failed to ruin us. When the check came, we split it. There's a theology in paying only for your half of a healed day. At the door, she said, "If I see you again, I hope it's at a place with worse lighting and better music." "If I see you again," I said, "I hope I don't need a folder." We left in 2 directions again. I liked that. The apartment noticed me differently when I came back with purpose. I moved like a list. Toiletries, 3 changes of clothes, the shirts I wore when I was most myself, the book I hadn't finished because I'd mistaken suspense for love. I took the notebook, and nothing from the shelf with the wedding frame. I left the frame. I didn't need a relic of 2 people who were good at smiling the same day. She stood in the doorway, not blocking it. "You're actually doing this," she said, as if the folder at dinner had been a rumor. "I am," I said. I kept my voice steady because I owed that to the version of me who had promised rules. "This isn't punishment." It's a tourniquet. She stepped into the room, hands twisting. I don't know why I did it, she said, the sentence that always arrives late and unhelpful. You do, I said, not unkind. You wanted something you didn't ask for. You took it without paying the right price. There's a word for that, and we both know it. She flinched, and I hated myself for the accuracy. Can we try therapy? We can, I said, while living apart, while not lying in rooms that didn't consent. She nodded, relief and grief fighting to decide which one got to do the paperwork. I don't want to lose you, she whispered. You already did, I said, and it came out softer than I expected. What you can choose now is how you remember me. I set the extra key on the counter. It made a small sound that sounded like truth. On the table, I left a single page, contacts for a counselor, outlines for logistics, bullet points any adult could live with, separate accounts, interim schedule for the lease, who tells who, when not to text. There's dignity in giving tomorrow a form. She reached for me. I let her hand touch my shoulder, and then I stepped out of its jurisdiction. I won't block you, I said, but I won't answer right away. Distance is part of the medicine. Tears came the way they do when there's no audience to impress. I didn't move toward them. I didn't move away. I loved you, she said. I know, I said. I loved you too. That's what makes this justice instead of theater. I zipped the bag. The apartment watched, equal parts judge and witness. At the door I turned once, not for her. She wasn't a statue I owed my neck to, but for the room, to thank it for housing the last version of me who didn't know how to insist on air. The hallway was quiet. The elevator arrived without asking what floor my heart lived on. Outside, the city acted like a city, buses exhaling, a couple arguing about nothing, a child insisting the sidewalk was lava for reasons that made sense to the child. I put the bag in the trunk of a car that knew where to go without being told, sat behind the wheel, and breathed. Not joy. Not triumph. Something sharper and more useful, unfractured. I texted Maya, not because I needed to, but because I wanted to send a sentence into a world that had earned it. Done. No spectacle. She replied with a single word that felt like a hand on a railing. Same. Nora pinged. Status. Leon accepted leave. HR proceeding. You did the right kind of hard thing. I typed back. Thank you for translating. She sent a check mark. Some people bless you without using the word bless. At a red light, I opened the notebook to the page where I'd written my rules and added a fifth, last line, the one that would have saved me 2 years if I'd known it earlier. Love isn't the opposite of boundaries. Lies are. The light turned green. I drove. The city didn't notice, and that, for the first time in a long time, felt like grace.